watched the black Mercedes pull up to the curb, and my heart did a little jump of relief. Finally. I've been standing outside Joe's diner for 15 minutes, my feet screaming in these cheap shoes, my back aching from an 8-hour shift that felt like 80. The app on my phone showed the same car, same model, same color. I didn't even look at the license plate. I just wanted to get home, crash on my bed, and maybe cry a little before my organic chemistry exam tomorrow morning. I yanked open the back door and slid inside, the leather seats cool against my skin. "Hi, sorry I'm running late," I said, already pulling out my textbook. "Campus housing, building C, please. And can you take the back route? There's always traffic on Main." Silence. I looked up from my phone and froze. The driver was staring at me in the rearview mirror, and he definitely wasn't my Uber driver. He was young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair styled perfectly, and a jawline that could cut glass. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my entire semester's tuition. His eyes were wide with confusion, then something that looked almost like amusement. "I think you have the wrong car," he said. His voice was smooth, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't quite place. My face went hot. "Oh God, oh no, I'm so sorry, I thought you were my ride, I didn't even look, I just saw the car and assumed." I fumbled for the door handle, wanting to disappear into the pavement. "I'm really sorry, I'll just go." "Wait," he turned around in his seat, looking at me properly now. "It's late, and you look exhausted. Where are you trying to go?" "It's fine, really, I'll call another car." But even as I said it, I saw my actual Uber driving away down the street. Great, just great. He must have seen it too, because he smiled just a little. "Let me drive you, I insist. It's partly my fault for having such a common car." I almost laughed. Common. This Mercedes probably cost more than my mom made in 5 years. But I was tired and it was late, and another Uber would take 20 minutes I didn't have. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose." "You already imposed by getting in my car uninvited," he said, but his eyes were teasing. "Might as well make it worth the intrusion. Campus housing, building C." I nodded, settling back into the seat, still clutching my organic chemistry textbook like a shield. He pulled into traffic smoothly, and classical music filled the car. Some piano piece that sounded expensive and pretentious. "Really?" I couldn't help myself. "Choppin' at 11 p.m. He glanced at me in the mirror again. "You don't like classical music." "I like music that doesn't make me feel like I'm at a funeral." I regretted it immediately. Here was this stranger doing me a favor and I was insulting his taste. "Sorry, that was rude. I'm just tired." But he laughed, actually laughed. "Fair enough. What would you prefer? Let me guess. Pop, hip-hop." "Why, because I'm young and black I must listen to hip-hop," I shot back, then bit my lip. "Actually, yes, I do. But also R&B, some indie and Broadway musicals when no one's listening." "Broadway musicals?" Now he sounded genuinely interested. "Which ones?" And just like that, we were talking. Really talking. About music and college and the absurdity of life. He told me his name was J.H., and he was in town for business. I told him I was Maya, a pre-med student who was pretty sure she was going to fail organic chemistry tomorrow because her brain was fried from working 3 jobs. "3 jobs?" he asked, and something in his voice changed, softened. "That's a lot." "Yeah, well, medical school doesn't pay for itself, and scholarships only go so far." I looked out the window, watching the city blur past. "But it'll be worth it. I want to be a surgeon, work in communities that don't have good health care, make a difference, you know." "That's admirable," he said quietly. "Most people I know only think about making money." "Well, I think about that too," I admitted. "Kind of hard not to when you're eating ramen for the 4th night in a row, but it's not everything." We pulled up to my building too soon. I found myself not wanting to leave, which was crazy. I didn't know this man. He was probably some rich businessman who'd forget about me the second I closed the door. But there was something about him, something real beneath all that polish. "Thank you," I said, gathering my things. Really, you didn't have to do this. Maybe we'll run into each other again, he said, and the way he looked at me made my stomach flip. I laughed, trying to ignore the flutter in my chest. In a city of millions, that seems unlikely. But as I walked into my building, I couldn't stop smiling, and I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, some way, I would see JH again. If you're enjoying this story so far, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you're going to want to see where this goes. I didn't have to wait long. The next afternoon, I was at my usual coffee shop, the one 3 blocks from campus that had decent Wi-Fi and didn't kick you out for nursing one coffee for 4 hours. I had my chemistry textbook open, my notes scattered everywhere, and I was pretty sure I was going to cry. The exam had been brutal, absolutely brutal. Is this seat taken? I looked up and nearly dropped my coffee. JH stood there holding his own cup, wearing jeans and a simple black sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He looked different in daylight, younger, even more handsome if that was possible. What are the odds? I managed to say. He smiled and it reached his eyes. I was just thinking the same thing, may I? I nodded, pushing my books aside. My heart was doing that stupid fluttering thing again. How did you even find this place? I like coffee, he said simply, sitting down across from me. And this place has good reviews. We talked for 3 hours. I forgot about my exam, forgot about my shift at the diner starting in 2 hours, forgot about everything except the way he listened when I talked. Really listened like my words mattered. He asked about my dreams, my family, why I wanted to be a doctor, and he shared 2 carefully edited pieces of his life. He talked about pressure from his family, about feeling trapped by expectations, about wanting to be seen for who he was and not what people expected him to be. That's the thing about expectations, I said, stirring my cold coffee. Everyone has them. My mom expects me to succeed because I'm the first person in our family going to college. My professors expect me to fail because the statistics say I will. My friends expect me to burn out. Sometimes I feel like I'm living everyone else's story except my own. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. So what's your story, Maya? If you could write it yourself, what would it be? No one had ever asked me that before. I felt tears prick my eyes and blinked them back. I'd be a surgeon, a really good one. I'd open a clinic in neighborhoods like the one I grew up in where people can't afford insurance and die from things that shouldn't kill them. My dad died from diabetes complications because he couldn't afford his medication. He was 43. My voice cracked. I'd make sure that doesn't happen to other people's dads. JH reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Just for a second, but it felt like electricity. You're going to do it, he said. I can tell. You have something most people don't. What's that? Crushing student debt and dark circles under my eyes. He laughed. Fire, determination. You know what you want and you're willing to fight for it. That's rare. Over the next 2 weeks, we kept running into each other. At the coffee shop again. Outside the library where I studied. At the food truck near campus where I'd told him they made the best tacos in the city. Each time felt like coincidence, like the universe was pushing us together. I didn't know he was tracking down every place I mentioned, didn't know he was arranging his entire schedule around the chance to see me. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. He told me about growing up with pressure to be perfect, to live up to a legacy he never asked for. I told him about growing up with nothing, about wearing my cousin's hand-me-downs and pretending I wasn't hungry at school because I'd given my lunch to my little sister. We were from different worlds, but somehow we understood each other. One night he took me to a rooftop. A friend owns the building, he said casually, unlocking a door that led to the most beautiful view I'd ever seen. The city sprawled out beneath us, lights twinkling like stars. This is incredible, I breathed, walking to the edge. The wind whipped my hair around my face. He came to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his body. I wanted to show you something beautiful. You work so hard, Maya. You deserve beautiful things. I turned to look at him, and the intensity in his eyes made my breath catch. We were inches apart. I could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could count his eyelashes if I wanted to. My heart hammered in my chest. "JH," I whispered, "I need you to be honest with me. Who are you really?" Something flickered across his face. Fear, guilt. "I'm just someone who wants to know you better." That's not an answer. I stepped back, wrapping my arms around myself. You show up everywhere I go. You have friends who own buildings. You wear clothes that cost more than my tuition. And you're being so careful about what you tell me. So who are you? He opened his mouth, closed it again. I could see him wrestling with something, some truth he wasn't ready to share. "Does it matter?" he finally said. "Does it change this, what we have?" "I don't know what we have," I said, and I hated how my voice shook. "I don't know anything about you except that you make me feel things I probably shouldn't feel, and that scares me." "It scares me too," he admitted. He reached for my hand, and this time I let him take it. "I've never felt this way about anyone, Maya. That's the truth. Everything else, all the details, they're complicated. But this is the realest thing in my life right now." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But I'd learned the hard way that things that seemed too good to be true usually were. Still, when he looked at me like that, like I was the only person in the world who mattered, I let myself hope. We didn't kiss that night, even though we both wanted to. I pulled back at the last second, and he respected it. But as he drove me home, our hands intertwined on the center console, and I let myself imagine what it would be like if this was real. If a girl like me could have something beautiful with someone like him. 2 days later, my roommate Tasha burst into our dorm room waving a magazine. "Maya, you need to see this." I looked up from my anatomy textbook, annoyed. "I'm studying, Tash." "Forget studying. Look." She shoved the magazine in my face. It was one of those business magazines, the kind with rich people on the cover. "Korea's most eligible bachelor to seal U.S. deal with marriage alliance," the headline screamed. My blood ran cold, because staring back at me from the glossy page was JH. Except the caption called him Park Ji-Hoon, heir to the Park Industries empire, worth billions. There was a whole article about him, about his engagement to Yoona Choi, daughter of a pharmaceutical magnate, about how their marriage would merge two of the biggest companies in Korea, about how he was in the U.S. finalizing the deal. The magazine slipped from my fingers. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." "Maya, is this the guy you've been seeing?" Tasha's voice seemed to come from far away. "The one you've been all dreamy about?" I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. He'd lied to me. Everything was a lie. I was what? Some American distraction before he went home to marry his perfect heiress. A fun story to tell his rich friends about the poor girl who actually believed he cared. "I need to go," I said, grabbing my jacket. "Maya, wait." But I was already out the door, running down the stairs into the cold night air. My phone buzzed. A text from JH, from Ji-Hoon, whatever his name was. "Can I see you tonight? I need to talk to you about something important." I stared at the message, tears blurring my vision. I wanted to throw my phone, wanted to scream. Instead, I typed back, "I'm working the university gala tonight. Catering. Maybe I'll see you there with your fiancé." His response came immediately. "Maya, please let me explain." I turned off my phone. The gala was hell. I showed up in my black catering uniform, my eyes red from crying, and tried to focus on carrying trays of champagne and tiny expensive food that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The ballroom was filled with rich people in designer clothes, laughing and drinking and living in a world I would never belong to. And then I saw him. Ji-Hoon stood across the room in a perfect black tuxedo, and on his arm was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. She was tall, elegant, with perfect skin, and a dress that probably cost more than a car. She looked like she belonged next to him, like they were two pieces of the same perfect puzzle. Our eyes met across the crowded room. His face went pale. He said something to the woman and started moving toward me. I turned and ran. I pushed through the crowd, my tray forgotten on some table, my vision blurred with tears. I made it to the hallway outside the ballroom before I heard his voice. "Maya, please stop, please." I whirled around and all the pain and anger I'd been holding in came pouring out. "Stop! You want me to stop? How about you stop lying to me?" "Ji-Hoon, or is it JH? Did you even tell me your real name?" "I did lie," he said, his voice raw. "About who I was, about my family, but everything else was real, Maya. Everything I felt, everything I told you about myself, that was all real." "Except the part where you're engaged," I shouted, not caring who heard. "Except the part where you're a billionaire who was just slumming it with the poor scholarship girl for fun. What was I, Ji-Hoon? Research, a charity case, your last bit of freedom before you marry into more money." "It's not like that." He stepped closer and I stepped back. "The engagement, it's arranged. It's been arranged since I was a child. It's about business, about merging companies. I don't love her, I don't even know her." "And that makes it better." I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold the pieces together. "You let me fall for you knowing you were going to marry someone else. You let me think. You let me hope that maybe, just maybe, someone like you could actually care about someone like me." "Someone like you," his voice rose. "What does that even mean?" "It means I work 3 jobs to afford ramen. It means I buy my clothes from thrift stores. It means I come from nothing and I'm going nowhere except through sheer stubborn will." The words were tumbling out now, all the insecurity I'd been hiding. "It means I was stupid enough to think that the way you looked at me meant something, that I meant something." "You mean everything," he said desperately. "Maya, you're the first real thing in my life. The first person who sees me and not my family's money or my last name or what I can do for them. I'm breaking off the engagement. I'm walking away from all of it." "To what? To be with me?" I laughed bitterly. "I don't need you to save me, Ji-Hoon. I don't need you to throw away your billions to make yourself feel noble. I was doing just fine before you came along." "This isn't about saving you." "Then what is it about?" I cut him off. "Tell me the truth. What was I to you? Was I your rebellion? Your little walk on the wild side before you went back to your real life? Did you tell your rich friends about the poor black girl you picked up who was so grateful for your attention?" The words hit him like physical blows. I could see it on his face. "How can you think that? How can you think I would?" "Because I don't know you," I screamed. "I thought I did, but I don't know anything about you. You lied about your name, your life, everything. For all I know, everything between us was just another lie." "It wasn't," his voice broke. "Maya, please, I love you." The words should have made me happy, should have fixed everything. Instead, they made me angrier. "You don't get to say that. You don't get to tell me you love me when you've been lying to me from the beginning. Love is supposed to be honest. Love is supposed to be real." "This is real," he insisted. "What I feel for you is the most real thing I've ever felt." "Then you should have told me the truth." Tears were streaming down my face now. "You should have trusted me enough to be honest from the start, but you didn't. Because deep down you knew this could never work. You knew I could never fit into your world." "That's not true." "Yes, it is." I wiped my eyes angrily. "Look at me, Ji-Hoon. Really look at me. I'm wearing a catering uniform at your fancy gala. I'm serving champagne to people who wouldn't even see me if I walked past them on the street. Your mother probably has servants who make more money than my mom does. This is reality. We're from different worlds, and pretending otherwise is just going to hurt more in the long run." He reached for me, but I stepped back again. "Maya, please don't do this. We can figure it out. I'll walk away from everything. My family, the company, all of it. We can build a life together." "And then what? You resent me for making you give up your life. Or worse, you realize what you gave up and regret it. I won't be the reason you throw everything away. I won't be your noble sacrifice." "You're not a sacrifice," he said, and I'd never heard anyone sound so broken. "You're the only thing I want." You say that now, but in a year, 5 years, when you're working some normal job and remembering what it was like to have everything, when you see your family and realize what you gave up, I shook my head. I can't be that person. I can't be the reason your life falls apart. "My life is already falling apart," he said quietly. "It's been falling apart for years. You were the first thing that made it feel like it was coming together." For a moment, I wavered. For a moment, I wanted to believe him, wanted to run into his arms and pretend that love could conquer everything. But I'd learned the hard way that fairy tales didn't come true for girls like me. "Goodbye, Ji-Hoon," I whispered. "Go back to your world, marry your perfect heiress, build your empire, and please, please don't contact me again. Let me have this much dignity." I turned and walked away before he could say anything else, before I could change my mind, before the part of me that loved him could overrule the part that knew this was impossible. I heard him call my name once more, but I didn't turn around. I just kept walking, out of the building, into the cold night, into the rest of my life without him. The next few days were a blur. I went to class, went to work, went through the motions of living, but inside I felt hollow. Tasha tried to talk to me, but I couldn't find the words. How do you explain that you fell in love with someone in 2 weeks, that you let yourself hope for something impossible, that you're mourning the loss of something you never really had? Then one evening, there was a knock on my dorm room door. I opened it expecting Tasha, who always forgot her key. Instead, I found myself face to face with an elegant older woman in a designer coat. Her hair was pulled back perfectly, her makeup flawless. She looked like she'd walked out of a fashion magazine. "Maya Johnson," she said in accented English. "Yes," I clutched the door, confused. "I am Mrs. Park, Ji-Hoon's mother. May I come in?" Every instinct told me to slam the door in her face, but curiosity and something like masochistic need to hear what she had to say made me step aside. She walked in, looking around my tiny dorm room with barely concealed distaste. The unmade beds, the textbooks everywhere, the mini fridge held together with duct tape. "I'll get straight to the point," she said, setting her expensive purse on my desk. "I understand you've been seeing my son." "Not anymore," I said, crossing my arms. "Good." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. It was thick, heavy. "This contains $500,000, enough for medical school and more. All you have to do is stay away from Ji-Hoon. Don't contact him, don't see him. Let him fulfill his destiny." I stared at the envelope like it was a snake. "You're offering me money to leave your son alone." "I'm offering you an opportunity," she corrected. "You're a smart girl, ambitious. You know that you and Ji-Hoon have no future together. Our worlds are too different. This way, you can achieve your dreams without the complication of a relationship that would only end in heartbreak anyway." My hands were shaking, with rage, with humiliation, with the sheer audacity of this woman standing in my home offering me money like I was something to be bought. "Get out." "Excuse me." I said get out. My voice was getting louder. "You think you can just buy me off? You think because I'm poor I must have a price?" "Everyone has a price," she said calmly, "and I'm offering you quite a generous one. If you're still watching, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. Don't miss what happens next." "You don't know anything about me," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "You don't know that I've worked since I was 14. That I've scraped and saved and fought for everything I have. You think your money can just erase that. You think I'm so desperate that I'd sell out for a check." Mrs. Park's expression didn't change. "I think you're a practical young woman who understands reality. My son has responsibilities, a legacy to uphold. He cannot throw that away for a fleeting romance with someone so clearly unsuitable. The word unsuitable hit me like a slap. Unsuitable, I repeated flatly. You mean poor, you mean black, you mean not good enough for your perfect son and your perfect family and your perfect world. I mean someone from a different background, she said, her tone infuriatingly calm. This isn't personal, Miss Johnson. It's simply the way things are. Ji-Hoon will marry Yuna. He will take his place in the company, and you will move on with your life. This money simply makes that transition easier for both of you. I walked to the door and opened it. I don't want your money. I never wanted anything from your son except honesty, which apparently runs as short in your family as basic human decency. Now get out of my room before I call security. For the first time, she looked surprised. You're making a mistake. No, I said, meeting her eyes. The mistake was thinking that people like you could see people like me as anything other than obstacles to be removed. The mistake was believing your son when he said what we had was real. But I'm done making mistakes where your family is concerned. She picked up her purse, the envelope still in her hand. At the door, she paused. Girls like you always have a price, Miss Johnson. Some are just better at pretending they don't. And women like you, I said quietly, always assume that money can buy everything, including people's dignity. I feel sorry for you, and I feel sorry for your son, growing up with a mother who taught him that love is just another transaction. She left without another word. I closed the door, leaned against it, and slid down to the floor. The tears came then, hot and bitter, not because of the money I'd turned down, though God knows I needed it, but because of what her visit confirmed, that no matter what Ji-Hoon said, no matter what he felt, his world would never accept me. His mother had made that crystal clear. I texted him one last time. Your mother came to see me. She offered me money to leave you alone. I said no, not because I want to be with you, but because I'm not for sale. Please respect my decision and don't contact me again. I mean it this time. Goodbye, Ji-Hoon. Then I blocked his number, blocked him on every social media platform, deleted every photo, every message, every trace of him from my phone. If I was going to move on, I needed to do it completely. No looking back. No what-ifs. Just forward toward the future I'd planned before a wrong car and a beautiful lie turned my world upside down. 3 weeks later, I got my acceptance letter to Johns Hopkins Medical School. I should have been ecstatic. It was my dream school, the place I'd worked toward for years. But when I opened the financial aid package, my heart sank. Even with scholarships and grants, I'd need $200,000 in loans. The debt would bury me for decades. I sat in my dorm room staring at that letter, and for the first time since my dad died, I let myself completely break down. I'd worked so hard, done everything right, maintained perfect grades while working 3 jobs, sacrificed everything, including apparently my heart, and it still wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. Tasha found me on the floor, sobbing into my pillow. She didn't ask questions, just held me while I cried out all the grief and frustration and exhaustion of the past 4 years. Of my whole life, really. I can't do it, I gasped between sobs. I can't take on that much debt. What if I fail? What if I don't make it through medical school? I'll be buried in loans with nothing to show for it. You won't fail, Tasha said fiercely. You're the smartest person I know. You're going to be an amazing doctor. But what if? No what ifs. You're going to Johns Hopkins. You're going to become a surgeon. And you're going to change the world. I don't care if you have to take out every loan in existence. Some things are worth the risk. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be brave. But I was so tired of fighting. So tired of being strong. Sometimes I just wanted things to be easy just once. I accepted the Johns Hopkins offer anyway. Signed the loan papers with shaking hands. Told myself that future Maya would figure it out. That the girl who'd survived losing her father and working 3 jobs and having her heart broken could survive anything. And then I moved on. Or tried to. I threw myself into my last semester of undergrad with a vengeance, took extra shifts at the diner, avoided the coffee shop where Ji-Hoon and I used to talk, avoided anything that reminded me of him. It hurt less than I expected and more than I wanted to admit. Some days I was fine. Some days I saw a black Mercedes and my heart would stop. I never heard from him again. He respected my wishes at least. Sometimes I wondered if he married Yuna, if he thought about me, if what we had meant anything at all, or if his mother was right and it was just a fleeting romance that he'd already forgotten. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was better off, that I dodged a bullet. I almost believed it. 2 years passed like a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Medical school was everything I'd imagined and nothing I'd expected, harder than anything I'd ever done. I studied until my eyes burned and my brain felt like mush. I worked in the hospital, learning to save lives while barely keeping my own together. I ate ramen and slept 4 hours a night and wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. But I didn't quit. Johnsons don't quit. My mom had raised me better than that. And somewhere along the way, something shifted. I found my rhythm, made friends with other students who understood the grind, started to remember why I'd wanted this in the first place, started to feel like maybe, just maybe, I was going to make it. I dated a little, nothing serious. A few coffee dates with a nice guy from my anatomy class, drinks with a resident who was sweet but boring. My heart wasn't in it. Tasha said I was still hung up on Ji-Hoon, but she was wrong. I wasn't hung up. I just learned to protect myself, to not let anyone close enough to hurt me again. Second year of medical school, I got involved in a research project on affordable diagnostic tools for rural communities. It was exactly the kind of work I dreamed of doing, making healthcare accessible to people who couldn't afford the fancy hospitals and expensive tests. My professor said my proposal was brilliant, that it could actually make a difference. The project got accepted to present at the National Medical Innovation Conference. It was a huge deal. Students from all over the country, plus industry professionals, investors, researchers. A chance to showcase your work and maybe, if you were lucky, get funding or support to actually implement your ideas. I worked on my presentation for months, practiced in front of mirrors and empty classrooms and anyone who would listen. This was my chance to prove that a girl from nothing could create something that mattered, that my dad's death hadn't been meaningless, that I could actually change things. The day of the conference, I put on my only professional dress, the one I'd bought at a consignment shop, did my makeup carefully, reminded myself that I belonged there, that I'd earned my place, that nobody could take this moment away from me. I walked into the conference center with my head high and my presentation loaded on a USB drive. The room was massive, filled with hundreds of people, important people, successful people. For a second, I felt like that girl who'd stumbled into the wrong car 2 years ago, out of place, pretending to belong somewhere I didn't. Then I remembered who I'd become since then. Not the girl who needed saving, not the girl who fell for pretty words and false promises. The girl who'd survived heartbreak and crippling debt and the hardest 2 years of her life. The girl who was going to be a surgeon, whether the world liked it or not. I found my assigned presentation room and set up my slides. I ran through my notes one more time, my hands steady even though my heart was racing. Other students filtered in, along with professors and people in expensive suits who had to be from pharmaceutical companies or medical device manufacturers. This was it, my moment to show what I could do. The moderator introduced me and I walked to the podium, took a breath, looked out at the audience, and froze, because sitting in the front row, looking directly at me with those same dark eyes that had haunted my dreams for 2 years, was Ji-Hoon. He looked different, older maybe. His hair was shorter, his suit somehow even more expensive than before, but his eyes were the same. And the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room, that was exactly the same too. Next to him sat an elegant woman I didn't recognize, taking notes on a tablet. Not Yuna, someone else. For a second I forgot where I was, forgot my presentation, forgot everything except the ache in my chest that I'd thought I'd buried. Then I remembered. I was Maya Johnson. I didn't need him. I didn't need anyone. I had gotten here on my own, and I was going to nail this presentation on my own too. I started speaking, and my voice was strong, clear. I talked about healthcare disparities in rural America, about how a simple diagnostic test that cost $5 in materials was being sold for hundreds because poor communities had no other options, about the portable testing kit I designed that could detect common conditions for less than $20, about how this could save lives. The audience was engaged, asking questions, nodding along, but I was hyper-aware of Ji-Hoon in the front row, watching me with an intensity that made my skin warm. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. People stood up. My professor was beaming. The moderator called it groundbreaking. I'd done it without help, without shortcuts, just me and my work and the dream I'd refused to let die. As people crowded around to ask questions and exchange business cards, I felt a hand on my arm. I turned, and there he was, up close, real. Not a memory or a dream, but actual Ji-Hoon, standing in front of me looking nervous in a way I'd never seen before. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi," my voice came out steadier than I felt. "You were incredible up there. Your research could genuinely change lives." He paused, seeming to struggle for words. "I knew you'd do it, become something amazing." "Thank you." I kept my tone professional, distant. "Are you here for the conference?" "My company is one of the sponsors, JH Innovations. We invest in healthcare technology startups." He gestured to the woman next to him, who'd followed him over. "This is Yoona Choi, my business partner." Yoona smiled warmly and extended her hand. "Your presentation was fantastic, Miss Johnson. We'd love to discuss potential funding for your project." I shook her hand, confused. Business partner, I thought. That we were engaged. Yoona's smile turned knowing. We were, until Ji-Hoon called it off 2 years ago and walked away from both our families to start his own company. Took me a while to forgive him, but now we're friends and colleagues. He has good instincts for innovation, even if his romantic timing is terrible. Ji-Hoon shot her a look, but she just laughed and walked away, giving us space. We stood there in awkward silence while the crowd thinned around us. "Can we talk?" he finally asked. "Just for a few minutes, please." Every logical part of my brain screamed no, but the part of me that had never stopped wondering, never stopped hopping despite everything, that part whispered yes. Okay, but not here. We found a quiet corner in the conference center lobby, sat down on uncomfortable modern chairs. I waited for him to speak, unwilling to make this easy. "I handled everything wrong 2 years ago," he started. "I should have been honest from the beginning, about who I was, about my family, about the engagement. I was a coward." "Yes, you were," I agreed. "There was no point in sugarcoating it." He nodded, accepting it. "When you told me not to contact you, it killed me, but you were right. I needed to figure out who I was without my family's money and expectations, so I walked away. From the arranged marriage, from my father's company, from everything." "Your mother must have loved that," I said dryly. "She didn't speak to me for a year," he smiled sadly. "My father still doesn't, but I started my own company. Built it from the ground up with Yoona, who turned out to be a brilliant business partner and a good friend once we admitted we'd never love each other romantically. We focus on healthcare innovation in underserved markets, making medicine accessible and affordable." I felt something crack inside my chest. "That's incredible, Ji-Hoon." "I learned it from you," he said quietly. "You taught me that success means nothing if it doesn't help people. That money is just paper if you're not using it to make the world better. You changed my entire perspective on what my life should be." "I didn't do anything. You made those choices yourself. You made me want to be worthy of you." His voice was raw with emotion. "Even if I couldn't have you, I wanted to be the kind of man who deserved someone like you. Someone with integrity and passion and the courage to chase impossible dreams. Tears pricked my eyes. I blinked them back. Why are you telling me this? Because I've spent 2 years becoming someone I'm proud to be. Someone independent of my family name and money. And I needed you to know that. Not because I expect anything. Not because I think we can just pick up where we left off. But because you deserved the truth I should have given you from the start. I looked at him, really looked at him. He seemed lighter somehow, less burdened. There was a confidence in him that hadn't been there before, but also a humility. He'd grown up, and so had I. I'm scared, I admitted. Last time nearly broke me, Ji-Hoon. I can't go through that again. I'm terrified, he said honestly. What if I mess this up again? What if you realize I'm still not good enough? What if? Stop, I held up my hand. No what ifs. I spent 2 years asking what if. What if I'd trusted him? What if I'd fought for us? What if I'd been brave instead of scared? I'm done with what ifs. Then what do you want? He asked, and I could hear the hope and fear warring in his voice. I thought about it, really thought about it. About the girl I'd been 2 years ago and the woman I'd become. About dreams and dignity and second chances. About whether love was worth the risk of getting hurt again. I want honesty, I finally said. Complete honesty. No more secrets, no more half-truths. If we do this, I need to know everything. Done, he said immediately. I want equal partnership. Not you saving me or me being your redemption project. We're both successful in our own right now. This has to be about 2 people choosing each other, not needing each other. I agree completely. And I want to take it slow. I looked down at my hands. I can't just jump back in like nothing happened. You hurt me. I hurt you. We both need to heal that before we can build something new. As slow as you need, he promised. Maya, I don't want to rush this. I don't want to mess it up again. If all you can give me is coffee once a week, I'll take it. If you need months to trust me again, I'll wait. I've waited 2 years. I can wait as long as it takes. I studied his face, looking for any sign of the man who'd lied to me. But all I saw was someone who'd walked away from everything to find himself. Someone who'd built something meaningful from nothing. Someone who'd grown up. Someone who looked at me the way I'd always wanted to be looked at. Like an equal, like a partner, like home. Hi, I said, extending my hand across the space between us. I'm Maya Johnson. I'm a second-year medical student at Johns Hopkins. I work too hard, I don't trust easily, and I'm probably going to be in debt for the next 30 years. I'm also brilliant, driven, and I don't settle for anything less than I deserve. A smile broke across his face, genuine and warm and utterly beautiful. He took my hand, and I felt that same electric spark from 2 years ago. Some things, apparently, didn't change. Hi Maya, he said. I'm Park Ji-Hoon. I walked away from a billion-dollar inheritance to start my own company because someone once taught me that legacy isn't about money, it's about impact. I'm still learning who I am, but I'd really like to figure it out with you, if you'll give me the chance. One chance, I said, but I was smiling too. Don't mess it up. I won't, he promised. Or I'll try really hard not to, and if I do, I'll own it and fix it instead of hiding behind lies. We sat there holding hands, 2 people who'd found each other in the wrong car at the wrong time, but maybe, just maybe, were finding each other again at exactly the right moment. It wouldn't be easy. We had years of hurt to work through, trust to rebuild, different lives to figure out how to merge. But for the first time in 2 years, I felt hope. Real, terrifying, beautiful hope. So, Ji-Hoon said after a moment, coffee. There's a shop around the corner. Fair warning, they probably don't play choppin'. I laughed, actually laughed, and it felt like breathing for the first time in forever. Perfect. I hate choppin' anyway. We stood up together, still holding hands, and walked toward whatever came next. Not a fairy tale. Not a guarantee. Just 2 people who'd found their way back to each other, scarred but stronger, ready to try again. And maybe, just maybe, that was better than any fairy tale ever written. Because this was real. Messy and complicated and uncertain, but real. And real was what we'd both been searching for all along. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Leave a comment telling me what you thought. Did Maya make the right choice? What would you have done? And remember, sometimes the wrong turn leads you exactly where you need to be. Not where you expected, but where you were always meant to end up. See you in the next story.